Welcome to Onward Live, a live stream focused on encouraging you to create a life you love living now. Let's go beyond success to significance. Being clear on our why is crucial. It requires doing the inner work, finding ourselves, getting to know ourselves, embracing our inner child, shedding social conditioning, and letting go of perfect. We know obstacles make us stronger. We can dream big and take action. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. I invite you to tune in every week and engage with me and my inspiring guests. Invite your friends. Let's make time for what matters most in our lives. Let's move onward together. Hi, everybody who's watching tonight, and for those of you who are listening to the podcast when it's published as an actual podcast, welcome. This is the Onward podcast, and it's all about creating a life you love living. And tonight, I'm excited to bring in my guest, Lauren Fonvielle, and she is an expert in the emotional freedom technique. I'd heard of EFT tapping, but I didn't know what it stood for, emotional freedom technique tapping, which is an alternative therapy for anxiety, PTSD, and other conditions. And learning new techniques like this, learning how we can, help ourselves create, I think that all is like a baseline for creating a life you love living. We all feel anxiety, we all feel stress, and how can we address it and move forward? So Lauren offers a fresh perspective on what's keeping people from feeling stuck. What's keeping us feeling stuck? It could be physically, like with chronic pain, or it could be emotionally stuck. And as we've talked about before on this show, our underlying beliefs and our emotions, whether we're aware of them or not, can affect our happiness in life. So I'm looking forward to learning from Lauren tonight. So Kara, thank you for joining us tonight. And let me bring Lauren on. Let's see. I didn't do a show recently, so I'm kind of behind on how to do these graphics. But there's Lauren. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So first off, why don't we just talk about like how you got into this? Because you were a business coach and now you do this EFT tapping and all other kinds of, alternative ways of healing. So I'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, I came to be doing what I'm doing because of my own journey with anxiety and stress, and my search for finding a way to make me feel better. And for me, it started with yoga, and I went on to become a yoga instructor, and then I was learning about Reiki, and I became a Reiki practitioner. And then I was in a group coaching program and was introduced to this idea of EFT for stress. And when I first heard of this idea of, oh, we're going to tap on ourselves and that's going to help us feel better physically and emotionally, I'm sure I gave it a pretty big eye roll. I was very, very skeptical. But then I tried it, and I felt better, and I was very intrigued by that. And I just continued to explore it and had one-on-one sessions and continue to have really great experiences with it, and then went on to get certified so that I could share it with other people.
Wow. I know what it's like to get certified. You're always studying, right?
Yes.
And you've got young kids too. So, and through all that time, you were a business coach, right?
Yeah. So I was originally in corporate marketing, and then that kind of led me into doing some freelancing work, and then the freelancing led into business coaching. And everything kind of organically really unfolded. And so in working with some of my clients at that time, as entrepreneurs, we deal with anxiety and stress, of course, and so that impacts how you're showing up in your business. And so when that inevitably would come up in a session, I started saying, "Hey, do you want to try this thing? It may be a little weird, but let's do a little tapping together." And so, and then my clients started to really, have some changes from it, and that's when I was like, "Okay, I'm this is more." This is there's something here. I really need to go get certified, and that's what really pushed me to go get certified. And now I'm really focusing more on helping people with their anxiety and stress, and finding that calm within so that they can move forward from that place of peace.
Yeah, it's definitely needed, especially,
Mhm.
after COVID and this return to work or not returning to work and so many things up in the air. And I think a lot of people are feeling anxiety and stress, and there's a lot of different, ways that folks can deal with it and work on that. But I think the first step is just acknowledging that that's what you're
Right.
feeling, right? And
Yeah.
understanding that it doesn't have to be that way. You could maybe say, well, it's because of the job or because of this or because of that. If I didn't have this stress, then I wouldn't feel this way. But you can change yourself even if the stressor doesn't change, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And, what is on the surface, what you are identifying as, the thing that's causing your stress, or what you believe is causing your stress, right? So for example, maybe it's that you have a deadline at work, and so you're really stressed out about that. And
Hmm.
while that's the maybe at the top of the list, there are likely a whole slew of things that are underneath that are also contributing to your anxiety and to your stress.
Right. Those are maybe your beliefs about the stress or about the
Mhm.
situation, or I know this happened before and this is how it ended up. And so it's going to happen this way and maybe not. So
Mhm.
Kara says, yes, I started integrating the emotion code in my life coaching, and it's been a game changer for my clients. That's
Mhm.
great, Kara. We got to catch up soon. So, yeah. And you say this EFT tapping can help with chronic pain, it can help with PTSD, it can help people who are feeling emotionally stuck.
Mhm.
Maybe you can explain it a little bit
Yeah.
as to what it is.
Yeah. So when I describe what EFT is, I often compare it to acupuncture because people are more familiar with acupuncture. So when you go to an acupuncturist, they take those tiny little needles and they place them in at certain points of the body. And with EFT, instead of putting little needles in, we're applying acupressure to some of those same points. And the points we're applying the pressure to by gently tapping are the end points of the meridians. And the meridians are how energy moves through the body. And so by acknowledging, and then at the same time, we're also acknowledging the emotions that we're feeling by speaking aloud phrases related to what's going on. And in doing so, it helps to get that energy moving and helps you to get unstuck. And it can also help with chronic pain. And I know that like again can just seem like almost too good to be true, but there is a lot of science behind what is going on inside the body and inside the brain that helps to create that shift. And really what's happening is that you're creating new neural pathways in the brain, and rewiring how you're thinking. And
Yeah.
when you're able to get a new perspective and think about things differently, you're of course going to feel differently.
So, like, why aren't doctors prescribing this?
The
Do-
million-dollar question, right?
uh-huh.
I think that's that's like a loaded question, right? Like, I think, you know, doctors aren't learning about that in medical school,
Hmm.
in the typical setting. But I think that, at least a lot of the clients that are coming to me, they have tried all sorts of different things that haven't worked. And then they happen to see maybe a documentary about EFT, or a friend has mentioned it to them, and then they find me. So a lot of the time people are at a point where, hey, I've tried all these different things, it hasn't worked. This sounds a little weird, but I'm going to give it a try and
Yeah.
see what happens. And there's no negative side effect with tapping. And I always, what works for one person isn't going to work for every person. So it's a practice of really finding what resonates with you. And for me, tapping has really profoundly impacted my life. And I've had the honor of working with lots of clients and seeing how it affects them. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's a powerful practice.
Well, I think we as the quote unquote patient, need to take our health into our own hands. Like I think I mentioned this a few months ago on a podcast. Like my hips were really hurting,
Mhm.
and I went to the doctor, and they did an X-ray. I do have some arthritis, but it's not that bad. And so, I mean, I was a lot really in pain, but he didn't really ask, okay, like, what's your typical day? How much are you? I mean, I do exercise. I'm thin. I look in shape. So he probably thought, well, she's in shape. She exercises. But, so what I had to do, I should have done earlier is just like analyze my day. And I realized, I feel like I'm sitting too much and I want to add more stretching and yoga into my day. And, that saved me a lot of money from like going to
Mm.
PT or whatever. And I noticed that from the yoga, I started feeling a lot better. And I just went on a trip and visited my daughter for a week. And I was sitting on a plane and just didn't get in. We went to a warm spring spa, which was nice, but I didn't really do much yoga. And so I noticed my hips are kind of aching a little bit again. So you just got to do some experiments with yourself and figure out what works. And so why
Yeah.
not try EFT
Yeah.
tapping, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's really a practice of tuning into your body and listening to your body. And when we talk about chronic pain, a lot of the time there are emotional components and contributors to physical pain. Even when there is, a physical reason for the pain. Like let's say you were in
Hmm.
a car accident, right? And now
Hmm.
you have like this neck pain. Even with that, you know, that of course it can be anxiety inducing in and of itself, because maybe then you're constricted and you can't do the things that you want to do. And then maybe you have fears around, oh, well, if I do this, am I going to be in pain? Am I not going to be able to do this? And so then we have all of these thoughts around these feelings, and you kind of get caught in this cycle or this loop of like anxiety and fear and pain, anxiety, fear, pain.
Yeah.
And when we are able to really allow ourselves to feel some of that fear and feel some of that anxiety, we can then release it. Because I feel like as humans, we don't like feeling intense emotions like sadness, anger, frustration. That's not an enjoyable thing, right? And
No, so
so
you could do what I used to do, which is just stay really busy and never feel
right.
it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Well, I refer to it as stuffing. We stuff it down into
Right.
our bodies and we distract ourselves with something else.
Hmm.
And while that can work in the short term, in the long term, it always ends up catching up with you.
It
Whether that,
does.
you get to that point where it's like gets so high that it's going to come out in some way, either emotionally or sometimes physically. And I think a really great example of that is with stress. 99% of the time when I ask someone, where do you feel your anxiety in your body, when you're stressed out, where do you feel that in your body, most people will have an immediate response to that, and sometimes oftentimes it's the neck and the shoulders, that tension in the neck and the shoulders. Sometimes people get migraines or stomach aches, and so it manifests in different ways. But it's not just with anxiety and stress that we hold on to things physically like that. It's with every emotion. And when we don't take the time to acknowledge, hold space, and really feel into these things, they just continue to build up. And tapping is really a beautiful, gentle practice that allows you to tune into really how you're feeling, and in doing so allows you to release some of these emotions that are stuck in the body.
Yeah. I feel like I say this on almost every episode, but one of my guests a few years ago said, when you shove your feelings to the basement, they lift weights.
Yeah, I mean
And they get
it's so
stronger and
true.
they build up and, they're going to come out in some way,
Yeah, it's
somehow.
like a rocket ship, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's gonna come out. And I mean, I always like to tell people this, that the definition of emotion is energy in motion. Our emotions want to move. They want to move. They do not want to be stuck down. And they can move when we acknowledge them. They can't move when we're ignoring them. And so taking the time to tap on these points and to say out loud how you're feeling, that in and of itself can begin to create a shift, because sometimes we, or a lot of the time, we are thinking the same thoughts over and over and over every day. And sometimes we're not, saying those out loud to anyone. We're just saying them to ourselves. And so taking the time to say it out loud, something that feels really true at the onset of a practice, then can begin to feel like, oh, that's not so true. Oh, that's even silly.
Yeah.
And so you think about it differently, because it's a perspective shift. You're kind of, I always think of like a camera, and when you're zoomed in on something, you can
Yeah.
only see that little bit in the photo, but when you zoom out, you have a whole new view, and that's what tapping can help you do.
Oh, I love that. So, I mean, when you are really busy and stuff like that, how do you recommend somebody make time to, notice their feelings and those thoughts?
Yeah. And I can totally relate to being really busy, right? I think it's being mindful of how we're physically feeling too, because a lot of these things do begin to manifest physically. I always will recommend a daily practice.
Hmm.
My daily practice includes EFT and some journaling, and I try to do yoga multiple times a week. But you have to have some sort of regular practice, and
Hmm.
helping you to really tune into how you're feeling. And in the beginning, maybe it's just a few minutes, and maybe it's doing something that you're already doing. I will always tell people, like, if you're somebody who gets up and takes a shower in the morning, you can tap while the shampoo is in your hair. Like,
Yeah.
you can do a little multitasking, right? But the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and the more likely you are to use it in those situations where you are really stressed and really overwhelmed, because this is a tool that can be used both proactively and reactively. So you can use it daily in your routine, but then you can also take it out during those times when you feel that anxiety starting to build up, or somebody says something to you that really triggers you, and you just feel the anger start to rise. Like, you can have this
Yeah.
tool at your literally at your fingertips, that can help you reduce the amount of cortisol in your body, because that's what tapping does. Like, as you're tapping on these points, it's sending a message to the amygdala in the brain, which is the part of the brain that controls fight or flight. And that part of the brain is there to protect us in those situations where we need to fight back or run away. But when we're talking about anxiety and stress, is particularly chronic anxiety and stress, it's like that amygdala, that alarm is constantly going off.
Right.
And then that's creating all of that cortisol that's going into your body. And sometimes that begins to feel normal if you're in that state of chronic stress all the
Yeah.
time.
You
And
think
that's
this is
not
just the way
normal.
life is, right?
Right. Yeah. And so, when you tap, it's been shown, Dr. Peta Stapleton did a study on this, and it's been shown that when you tap, it reduces the amount of cortisol by up to 43%. I mean, it's a really, really big number.
Yeah.
And so, if you, even if, I always tell people, even if you just find one point, one of these tapping points that you really, are drawn to, because I find that most of my clients have a favorite point. And in those moments of feeling really overwhelmed, you just do a little bit of tapping, or even holding pressure on the one point and doing some deep breathing. It's going to reduce the amount of cortisol, and you're going to begin to feel calmer. And when you can feel calmer, you can think more clearly. And when you
Yeah.
think more clearly, you can make good decisions and you feel better. So,
Yeah, for sure. So let's just say that, you're really stressed at work. People aren't getting along. There's a lot of drama. I don't know. And it's just every time you're going to work, you feel stressed,
mhm.
um, or anxious. Like, what would you recommend somebody do? Like, how do they do this EFT tapping?
Yeah. So the way that it works, right? So if somebody came to me with that problem,
Mm-hmm.
we would have a little chat about it. And then one of the most important things with tapping is really using your own words. So, in that example that you gave, we could maybe make a sentence that's like, even though I get anxious at the start of the day or when I'm driving to work, that's just how it is. Or, even though I have all of this anxiety and I feel it in the morning, I love and accept myself. You come up with phrases and you use those phrases as you're tapping on the points. And as you're doing so, other thoughts are going to come up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're past memories that you are going to try and make sense of. And
Yeah.
sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like you have, maybe you have a memory from childhood just kind of pop up what feels like out of the blue. I promise you there is some sort of connection there. And so it's really a process of connecting the dots and just seeing where it goes. And when you do this work, you know, if we're talking about like feeling anxious at work, you would give it a number. You would rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, how intense is that anxiety in my body right now? And then we would continue to tap and talk, and then check in and see how that number goes down. So you can just have that reference point as you continue to move through the practice, because it's pretty phenomenal how it can work, and how you and then you can I mean, I know I when I was first introduced to it, I was blown away with I was like, "What? Like, I actually feel better. What is going on? This is so weird." Yeah.
So does somebody, can you show us like where you do the tapping, or is that something
Yeah.
that someone needs to hire a coach to learn, or?
No, we could definitely do it now. And there's tons of YouTube videos out there. I always just like to remind people that if you're doing a tap along video, on YouTube, and the words that the practitioner is using don't necessarily resonate with you,
Uh-huh.
um, make them your own. Change the words so that they do resonate with you, because that's an important part of this, is really allowing yourself to feel your feelings. And it's not always the case that what the practitioner is saying is going to match up with exactly how you're feeling.
Got
But
it.
yeah, we could totally do a little bit of tapping now and show you where the
Okay.
points are. Okay.
All right.
So a good way, I think, or introduction to it is if everybody, like, if you just pause and take a nice deep breath in and notice the tension, like the quality of your breath. If there's tension in your breath, does it feel choppy? Does it feel smooth? Like, how challenging is it to get a full breath in? So if it was
Mm-hmm.
really challenging for you, it would be a 10. And if it wasn't challenging, it would be like a 0.
Okay.
And then we'll do a little bit of tapping, and then you can check back in and see if it's a little bit easier to get that full breath in. Because
Okay.
oftentimes I feel like focusing on something physical, it's a little bit easier to tell when you're first starting with tapping.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so just take a nice deep breath in and give yourself a number. And sometimes people struggle with the number, and so if you're one of those people, it's kind of like the pain scale when you go to the doctor, like, where are you on the
Mm-hmm.
pain scale? It can just be a little bit, medium, a lot. It's just so that you have that point of reference.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, when I take a deep breath in right now, I kind of feel tightness in my ribs. What about you? What do you feel?
Kind of tightness up closer to my top of
Your
my
chest.
chest.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're gonna use your words,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna show you where the points are, and then I will say a sentence, and then you will just repeat the sentence and tap where I tap. Does that
Okay.
sound
Should
good?
I move the screen so people we could see better, do you think? Let me see.
Sure.
Let's try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So the first point is on the pinky side of the hand. Now you can use either hand. I tend to tap with my right because I'm a righty, but the pinky side of the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just gently tapping, and we're going to say a phrase 3 times here. So, and then if I ever say anything that doesn't feel true to you, feel free to let me know and we can change the words.
Okay.
So, even though I feel this tightness in my chest,
Even though I feel this tightness in my chest,
I'm honoring how I feel.
I'm honoring how I feel.
Even though I feel this tightness in my chest, I love and accept myself.
Even though I feel this tightness in my chest, I love and accept myself.
Even though I feel this tightness in my chest, that's just how it is right now.
Even though I feel this tightness in my chest, that's just how it is right now.
The next point is at the top of the head, this just the center crown of the head.
Mm-hmm.
This tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then we're going to go to the start of the eyebrows. This tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then we're going to go to the side of the eyes. this tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And just pause here and take a nice breath in and notice how you're feeling.
Yeah, it's not as tight.
Mm.
Hmm.
And then we're going to go under the eyes, this tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then under the nose, this tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then onto the chin crease, this tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then the collarbone. So right under the collarbone on the fleshy part of the skin, this tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then we're going to go under the arm. So on the side of the body. So for women, kind of the center of the bra strap.
Mm-hmm.
And for men, it's probably about 2.5, 3 inches down from the armpit. This tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then the last point is on the back of the hand between the pinky and the ring finger. This tightness in my chest.
This tightness in my chest.
And then pause right there and take a nice deep breath in. And you can notice if there's any difference in the tightness, if anything else came up. When we're first getting started with tapping, oftentimes people will tell me, like, I'm so focused on like tapping in the right spot and saying the right thing, but the more you get used to doing this, the easier that part becomes. And the more you're able to kind of tune into your body. And a lot of the time, thoughts that are in the subconscious mind can come up. Like I said, memories can come up. And, the goal is obviously to get that number to go down. But what we're doing here is we're focusing on where we are right now. So we're acknowledging the tightness that we feel.
Instead of shoving it down or getting busy and ignoring it.
And yes, exactly. And the idea is that we will authentically move towards that better feeling or thought when we're ready. So, how do you feel right now? What was your number to begin with, and what is your number now?
I'd say it started out as like a 7 and then it was a 4. Or okay. 7 was high, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the high. Yeah.
So, and that was just one round of tapping. And so for those people that, notice a difference like Emily did, that's awesome, right? And other people might not notice a difference after just one round of tapping, and that's totally fine. You just need to continue to do it. It's just this process of gently moving towards the better feeling or thought. So it's different than, okay, I'm noticing the tightness, and then I'm just going to like switch over and say a positive affirmation of like, it's the easiest breath of my life, right?
Then you don't believe that. Yeah.
Right. That's exactly it, because it doesn't feel true.
Right.
And so it's just that ability to move in that direction when you're ready. Because when we're dealing with emotional stuff, like if you're dealing with really intense sadness, it's not reasonable to think that you're suddenly going to be at the other end of the spectrum and be really, really happy. But maybe the better thought is, I'm really sad, but I've been really sad before, and I know it's going to get better, right?
Yeah. And when you're going through a divorce, this would be helpful. Mm-hmm. And that's when you said maybe it's not going to go right away. It's like that kind of a pain doesn't go away right away.
Right. Right. Yeah. And this allows you to sit with where you are and really have what you're having, so to speak. And we have to heal it. We have to feel it to heal it. And this is a beautiful practice of allowing yourself to feel it, and it meets you where you are.
So that was one, you said it was one round of tapping, and is it also one way of tapping and there are other ways, or is it always, you say the thing and then you say the more positive thing, and then you went and just kept saying what I was feeling now is what I was saying a lot.
Yeah.
But is that you hit those same points every time?
Yes.
Okay.
You hit those same points every time. If any of those points, if tapping on any of those points is bothersome for you, skip it. You don't have to, if because some people, like, maybe they have sinus issues and tapping on the face is
Hmm.
uncomfortable. If that's the case, skip that point. So there really is no wrong way of tapping. But when you're getting started, I always recommend, really tuning in and focusing on that main emotion that that's coming up for you. So in that case, we were focusing on the restriction
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
staying with that. So if it was an emotion, you could just say, "I'm so sad. I'm so sad," or "I'm so angry," and just keep, and then notice what's coming up, notice what you feel in your body. And so when you work with the practitioner is really able to, come at it from an outside perspective and also ask a lot of questions. Where do you feel that in your body? What are you noticing? And kind of dissect things a little bit more to help you come up with those phrases and guide you through the practice.
Got it.
Um, yeah, because sometimes, that's something that a lot of people say to me, like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So that's why I try to keep it really simple. Just the main emotion or the main physical feeling in your body. Try to get as specific as you can and just stick with those words until another thought comes up.
Got it. Got it. So Maxine says, love, feel it to heal it.
Yes, I love that too, right? I love that too.
Yeah. And that's so true. I mean, I've just started in the past 3 years, I guess, learning really how to feel and name my feelings. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons I retired at 56 from the federal government, because I just knew something was, I wanted to feel, and I was too busy, and my job was keeping me too busy, and all that. And then when I retired, I was still busy. So I realized, okay, it's not my job. It's some of my thoughts and underlying beliefs about how I approach my life. And so I've really done a lot of work on myself. And that's why the theme of this is, create a life you love living now. Cause we can say, well, when this changes, or this person would be different towards me, my life would be better. No, we got to feel our feelings, know what they are, deal and heal them.
Yeah, being in the present moment, right? Like that's what
Right.
it's really all about. And I feel like this is a practice that can really help with that. It's a very grounding practice. I think the somatic part of it, of actually physically tapping on the body, can be really helpful. And I've found too, it's particularly helpful for those people that struggle with meditation. Those people that come to me and say, "I can't meditate and I have too many
Yeah.
thoughts, I can't turn it off." Well, this is a practice that allows you to acknowledge all of those thoughts. You can say every single one of those thoughts that you're thinking in your mind and just like tap and talk. That's really what
Right.
it is. Tap and talk, and you're getting it out, you're acknowledging it, and you'll begin to be able to say, like, to notice, oh, when I say that, I feel this. And so there really gets to be that mind body connection, and that ability to tune into to how you're feeling, and then let go of the things that aren't serving you so that you can feel good in your body, because we deserve that. We all deserve that.
Yeah. For sure we do. Hi, Gabe. Thanks for joining us. He says, hi, glad to catch you before I have to go live. Gabe goes live every night. I don't know how he
Oh,
does
cool.
it. He's always got some guest on and doing some great things. And yeah, I hear a little bit of a background noise. I don't know if I don't have a TV.
I don't hear anything on my end.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
1 second. Start talking about something and let me just go check. I think my
Okay.
Alexa went on or something. I think
Oh
my Alexa went on or something.
no.
Hold on.
Okay. Gabe just said, "How do you feel about anchoring using tapping?" So yeah, I think tapping is a great way of really grounding yourself and being able to breathe into how you're feeling and coming back to the present moment. So I think it's a wonderful tool for anchoring and grounding.
Yeah. Yeah. My Alexa was on. We didn't, I don't want to say that
Uh-oh.
name again. Tap and talk
That's funny.
indeed. How do you feel about anchoring using tapping? Is that what you just discussed?
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
just saying, that it's such a calming practice, and it's such a gentle practice. And I think the somatic part of tapping helps to bring you, what I like to say or refer to as, coming home to yourself. and breathing, reminding you to take those deep breaths and just tap and breathe. And doing so is going to help to reduce that cortisol and calm the body, calm the mind.
Yeah. It's similar to something that I coach in, which is positive intelligence, which is where, you do these short PQ reps. I don't know if you've heard of it, but you might you start to feel stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, and you just close your eyes and rub your fingers together. And when your mind starts to wander, you bring it back. It's kind of another way of creating a new neural pathway in your brain to not have that reptilian brain just sabotaging us, saying, danger, danger, danger. Okay, is it really danger? How do we
Right.
slow down and just feel what we're feeling, take a breath? So I just encourage everybody who's watching and listening now and in the future to just try different ways and see what works for you. For some people, it is meditating. I had a hard time meditating. My coach is like, I want you to meditate for 40 days straight. How much time do you have? And the check boxes were like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour or something. And I wanted to say an hour because I like to achieve, but I
Right.
knew I wouldn't do an hour. So I said, all right, 15 minutes, I can do that. And it took me the longest time. Every time I'd see her, she'd say, what day are you on? I say 2, because you don't understand. I'm busy. I don't have time. And so, I finally did it, and I learned how good that made me feel. So just like you did a lot. You started off with a lot of experimenting, like what works for me, right? Don't give up if meditation isn't the thing that works for you, or if
Right.
tapping's not what works for you. Keep trying.
Yes, that's like 100% what I say all the time. It's don't give up on that. And it's if you are getting what I call like little soul nudges or little taps, and maybe it's like you see a flyer about something or you see an ad for something and you're like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." If that something's coming up continually, it's not for you to ignore it, it's for you to explore it. So when different modalities are around, check it out, see what works for you,
Yeah,
because why not? We want
right.
to feel good.
So we have a LinkedIn user asking, can you do one more tapping demonstration?
Oh, sure. um so let's just do it on anxiety.
Okay.
Right, so tune into something that's causing anxiety for you. And again, notice where it is on that scale of 1 to 10. And it could be something, something silly, something like something that annoys you. I'd like the first thing I think of is like if your husband, squeezes the toothpaste the the wrong way, right? Like anything. Um, and just notice where it sits in the body. And then we're going to come to the pinky side of the hand again. And we'll say, even though I feel this anxiety in my body,
Even though I feel this anxiety in my body,
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Even though I'm feeling anxious,
Even though I'm feeling anxious,
I'm honoring how I feel.
I'm honoring how I feel.
Even though I'm feeling anxious, I love and accept myself.
Even though I'm feeling anxious, I love and accept myself.
And then we're going to move to the top of the head. All of this anxiety
All of this anxiety,
coming to the eyebrows. I'm feeling anxious.
I'm feeling anxious.
Sides of the eyes. I'm feeling anxious.
I'm feeling anxious.
And then as we say that, notice if there's a particular area of the body where you feel this. Under the eyes, all of this anxiety.
All of this anxiety,
Under the nose, all of this anxiety.
all of this anxiety,
All of this anxiety I'm carrying in my body.
all of this anxiety I'm carrying in my body.
And as we tune into that anxiety, think about how long you've been holding on to that anxiety. And then we can say, all of this anxiety I've been holding on to.
All of this anxiety I've been holding on to.
And then we're going to go underneath the arm. All of this anxiety.
All of this anxiety.
And then the back of the hand between the pinky and the ring finger. all of this anxiety in my body.
All of this anxiety in my body.
And then we can pause there and take a nice deep breath in and let it go. And notice what that brought up for you. And maybe it brought up more thoughts around other things that are causing anxiety in your life. Maybe you really were able to tune into where you feel it in your body and you made some sort of connection between a physical sensation and the anxiety. And so again, this is kind of just like a sneak peek into what a tapping session looks like. But again, it's then asking more questions and diving a little bit deeper um, and I think what I love about tapping is that you never really know where a session is going to go because you never know like what the mind is going to bring up.
Yeah.
And it can be a really, really powerful experience and a really healing experience.
So it's kind of like, um, yes, you can do it yourself without a coach. However, sometimes we don't know our blind spots, right? And
Right.
we don't ask ourselves the questions that a coach would ask. So
Right.
you might be able to get to a better understanding of your feelings and stuff through working with you, who's also doing the coaching and the asking of the questions and increasing the awareness of the client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's just getting started, I would always recommend, working with a practitioner to, help you, not only tune in and ask those questions, but, it's always my intention when working with my clients to really empower them to feel more comfortable to do this work on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and have a daily practice. And even clients that I've worked with for a long time, they still want that guidance and that support in that way, because like you just said, you don't know your blind spots, and it's helpful and really healing to have somebody else hold that space for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Russ. Nice to see you. Good conversation, he says. Very important. Yeah, it is. I'm wondering, you said, Lauren, that you have two children ages 10 and 12. Do you teach
Hmm.
them tapping?
I do. I do. I actually just came out with a mini course that is free through tomorrow, or the Friday, the second. And
Is that it? The
it's
5 day
about
mini, the mindset reset,
no,
or
it's
no?
actually another one that I
Oh,
hadn't even
another one.
mentioned to you because
Okay.
I made it after. But it's about specifically for anxiety and stress around going back to school for both parents and children, because
Yeah.
it's such a stressful time. And I think it's particularly difficult when your child has anxiety,
Mm,
and then you get anxiety because your child is having anxiety about
yeah.
school. We all, as humans, we feed off of each other's energy. And so
Right.
tapping can be really, really helpful tool for kids. And the link for that, if anybody's interested, is mindshiftwithlauren.com/back dash to dash school.
Oh, back to school. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's your website. So they would be able
Yes.
to find it there too,
Yes.
right?
For sure. Yes.
Mindshiftwithlauren.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. But yeah,
Because
it can
you,
be really helpful for kids. And one other thing, like we went over the points that we did, but in addition to those points, just like how with acupuncture there are acupuncture points all over the body, so for kids in particular, I like to tell people about the finger points. So if you squeeze just at the base of the finger of every single finger, it can just look like you're fidgeting, but you're squeezing at the base of the fingers. That's doing that same thing as tapping on the points. And so for kids, I'll tell my kids, like, if you're feeling anxious, maybe before a test or something's going on, just put your hands underneath your desk and just squeeze those points and take some deep breaths. And it can be
yeah.
helpful for kids, but it can be helpful for adults too. If you're in a conference room and somebody's saying something really triggering. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you don't want to tap on your head or
Right.
under your
Yeah,
arm or your
right. You don't want to
eyes.
have everybody looking at you like, what is that crazy lady doing? Yeah.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us from Chile. Appreciate
Ooh,
that.
cool.
Yeah. So, what age do you think you could teach a child? I'm thinking I could teach my, not that I could teach him, but my 6-year-old grandson could learn this easily.
Yeah, definitely. And with little ones, it's also fun. You can like take a little stuffed animal and you can do the tapping on the stuffed animal to teach them. There's also something called surrogate tapping. So if you're having a really little one, like maybe a little one that's like having tantrums all the time, you can do the tapping on yourself, and it can be helpful for them as well. And the way that that works, kind of what I was saying before about like how our energy, we feed off of each other's energy. So you could do tapping about how it makes you feel that you're seeing your child hurting or having these tantrums or
Mm-hmm.
getting all upset, and work through your own emotions around the situation first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can tap as if like what you think your child would say. And it's very interesting how then after doing that kind of work, then something will shift, and you will likely see a difference in the child's behavior,
In the
or
child.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, you said, I would say like energy is contagious, right? If I
Yep.
came to this interview all pissed off and stressed, you'd start to maybe feel that way too, right?
Right,
So,
exactly.
the kids can pick up on our stress and our anxiety. So, if we can do that, then, that can definitely help them. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So I've got a lot of captions here to put up for you.
Okay.
We'll just go through them real quick. And if anybody watching has any questions, please feel free to post them, and we'll ask Lauren. But I've got your email address, Lauren@laurenfonville.com. And then people can connect with you on LinkedIn, of course. And then you have a couple of courses. You've got this 5-day mindset reset, which they can get from your website. And then you also have a master class
Yeah.
that they
So
can
the
get.
master class really goes into detail about the science behind it. It goes through a full practice, and that's totally free. And so if you're curious, you want to learn more about it, I would start there. And yeah, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free and reach out. I just love sharing this work. It's had such a profound impact on my life. I just love sharing
Yeah.
it with other people.
And this mindset reset, what is that? What's the difference between that and the master class?
Yeah, so the master class is more of like an introduction to EFT and what it is, how it works, what it can help with. And the mindset reset is a 5 day. Well, you get an email a day for 5 days with a tap along video, and the videos will go through, trying to help you reset your mind, reset your
Okay. Got
mindset,
it.
and feel better, and move forward. Yeah,
And give you a taste of what it's like. Yeah,
exactly.
to do this. Okay. And then you have a Facebook page with your name, Lauren Fonville.
Hmm.
And then Instagram as well.
Yeah, Instagram, Lauren Nicole with it's a zero for the for the O.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you also have a YouTube channel where you put your videos. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so if you go to my website, you can see all the videos on my website, and then you can also you can sign up for my weekly newsletters there, and I send those videos out with some information on a weekly basis.
So would you recommend that like after tapping somebody journal, like what are some kind of journaling cues or some things that people should journal about afterwards?
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite is like, how are you feeling and what are you thinking about? Those are two questions that, not just with journaling, but even like I like setting a alarm on my phone and beginning to it really helps to make that connection between the mind and the body. Like, what am I thinking about and how am I feeling? And if I'm feeling good, great. What am I thinking about? Let's do more of that. And if I'm not, what am I thinking about and how can I shift that?
Oh, I love that.
So
How
that
often do you set your alarm?
I'll go through periods where I'll do it. I'll do it every day, just kind of as a reminder to check in. I'll tell people set it at a different time, different
Okay.
times, so that because sometimes if you're setting it at the same time every day, you're kind of doing the same thing. So it's interesting to kind of like switch it up and,
Yeah.
and see. But and then journaling about that, and beginning to make more of those connections.
More of those connections, just increasing your awareness. I was in a
Hmm.
meeting the other day and we started off with this. We went around the room and we answered these three things. We said, my mind is,
Mm,
my body is, and my heart is.
mm.
And so that's just another way of bringing awareness to how you're feeling.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
My mind is, my body is, my heart is. I love that too. I wrote it down and then I like your idea of, just setting a timer every once in a while and
Hmm.
saying, oh, yeah. Because if you set it for 10 every day, every morning, you're going to be like, oh, it's 9:45. Let me get my thoughts straight.
Right.
But when it just goes off periodically and you're not really sure, you're not going to be aware. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because we think so many thoughts a day. What is it, like 70,000? And
Mhm.
most of them we're not aware of. And sometimes we repeat those same thoughts. So if we want to change our outer world, we need to change our inner world.
Mhm.
Be aware of
Yeah,
it, right?
I think I think it, we talk a lot about how like the outer world impacts our inner world, right? All like the chaos of everything going on outside, it impacts how we feel inside. But I think it's also important to remember that our inside world has the ability to be just as impactful, if not more impactful, on the external world, right? Like if you're coming from that place of peace and grounding, that's going to impact your interactions with other people and how you're showing up and how your day is going to pan
Yeah.
out.
I read a book called Untethered Soul. And in that book, he
Hmm.
talks a lot about how a lot of our stress and anxiety and stuff is because we're of our reactions to what is and wishing what is would be different. And if
Hmm.
we can be more accepting and let that energy just flow through us, then we don't have it all stuck in our body and it doesn't
Yeah.
show up as dis-ease or
Yeah.
disease.
Yeah. No, exactly. And like, we spend as humans, I think, a lot of time worrying, it's like worrying about the future
Right.
or regretting the past.
Yeah.
And we need to just be present and in the present moment. So, recognizing when you're doing that and coming back to the present moment.
Right. So that tapping brings you to the present moment. And like in that program, I coach on that positive intelligence, those what he calls PQ reps is to bring you to the present moment. And when you're doing that, you're creating, like you had said earlier, new neural pathways in your mind. You're
Mhm.
teaching your mind to not go to that same place every time when this stressor comes. Like when my husband doesn't put the toothpaste cap on, you're used to going this way. You can actually train your mind to like not have that be something that causes anxiety.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it's like the idea with how tapping can help with PTSD, because you have some sort of trigger that's happening in the present moment that's basically bringing you back in time so that your physical body is experiencing what it experienced when it originally went through the trauma. And
Hmm.
so tapping helps to create this space between the memory of what happened. It's not going to change the memory or anything like that, but it's going to create this space between the memory and the physical sensation in the body so that eventually you can get to a point where you can be exposed to that trigger and then not have that physical reaction. And
Got it.
I mean, and that can be obviously life changing for people. There was a study that was done on veterans that had PTSD, and they did tapping for 6 weeks, once a week, for an hour. And by the end of the 6 weeks, 90% of the people in that group had reduced PTSD symptoms.
Wow.
And then yeah, I mean, it's huge. And then they checked in with them 3 months later, and again 6 months later, and the reduction was still there. I mean,
So you
that's
said they were
phenomenal.
doing the tapping for an hour because when we did it, we were just doing it for a short time. Like
Yeah.
how long when you're working with your clients, like how long are they tapping?
Yeah, so in the program that I start my clients off in, it's an 8-week program, and we meet once a week for an hour, and we tap. And I know that when you're first being introduced to this, it's like an hour of tapping.
Yeah.
That sounds insane. But it really goes fast, and it just naturally unfolds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do that with people in a group
I
or is
I
that one
do,
on
yeah,
one?
I do. But when I'm starting with my clients, we typically are working one on one.
One on one. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so people can reach out to you by going to your website, right?
Yes.
Um, which is mindshiftwithlauren.com, or they can connect with you on LinkedIn or email you at lauren@laurenfonville.com,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. I am here to answer any questions.
Okay. Any last minute piece of advice that you want to give before we end the show?
Yeah, I would just say, the answers all lie within. They are all there. And sometimes we just need a little help accessing them. And tapping is a tool that can help you do that.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for being on the show. I'm going to put you in the green room for a minute as we end the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you for those who watched tonight and joined us and commented in the chat. I'll probably miss somebody, but Russ and Elizabeth and Kara and Gabe and Maxine and Florence and Tim. Really appreciate you guys for showing up tonight. And I'll be live again next week. And I'm going to be live pretty much most Wednesdays. There's going to be a few that I'm missing, but between now and the end of October, and then after that, I'm ending the Onward podcast. After 3.5 years of this, I think it's just time to move on to something else. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not sure what's exactly going to be next. It might be, I think a lot of it is just creating more free time for myself because, hey, I am retired, right? And I also want to have more time to coach my clients because I really love doing that. I also love doing this podcast. I learn from every single guest, and I really enjoyed learning from Lauren tonight, and I'm sure you did too. So thank you, Lauren, and I'll see you all again next week. Onward Live is sponsored by Emily Harmon Coaching and Consulting. Visit my website, emilyharmon.com, to learn more about me and my coaching programs. I'd love to help you create a life you love living. Remember, every adversity is our own personal university. Sometimes the lessons are difficult, and we must learn from our experiences. Vulnerability is your superpower. You are lovable and worthy. And we discuss these topics and more because professional is personal. Thank you for joining us and engaging.